Let's talk about letting other voices into your paper. Reasons that you might do this include to present a counter-argument, perhaps to give credibility to your position, to present a well-known argument or give an example for analysis. Maybe it's even an assignment requirement, or perhaps you're unsure of your own ideas. Remember that your paper needs to be your own argument. Even with proper citation, using too much of someone else's argument can lead your professor to assume any number of the following things. For instance, maybe you didn't generate your own ideas. You are not fulfilling the assignment. You probably shouldn't receive a passing grade on the paper. You might not demonstrate the skills to pass the course. You are probably lazy. You don't know how to use sources effectively. Some problems using sources include using too many blocked quotations, ending paragraphs with quotations, using too many references in one paragraph. Extreme problems could be being accused of plagiarism because you didn't properly cite your source, or taking credit for another work that's not yours. The primary way in which you can keep control of your paper is to select your sources to support your argument and not to make your argument. Look for sources about your argument. Don't look for arguments you can take from your sources. You can make an argument in response to your source's positions, but none of those positions should be the whole argument of your paper. Don't use other people's words as a topic sentence, and only use sources to support the argument you already are making before the source shows up in your paper. Block quotations can be tempting because they take up space, they are clear and well written, they offer your essay a strong position. They can be poisonous to your paper if you do not provide analysis of everything you quote, the information is irrelevant to your argument, or you don't control the amount of information you quote. Here are a few guidelines for limiting the sources that you use. Only give as much of the quote as is relevant to your argument in the paper. Only present as much information in a quote as you are prepared to analyze. Only use ellipses in the middle of a shortened quotation and not at the ends. Don't try to cram too many quotes or sources into one paragraph. Once your quotes are selected, provide an introduction for each. Where does this information come from? Who is speaking or making the argument? Where was it presented to you? Your introduction to the source should give the audience a point of reference to evaluate the source. Give some justification for the source to be in your paper, and your introduction should show your audience that your source is credible. To give the audience the context of your quote, let's look at some different examples of how to write an introduction. The first example reads, as Nick Pierce argues in his book, My Time in China, people should always try new things when they travel. The second example, My Time in China, Nick Pierce's autobiographic argument about the importance of new experiences argues throughout that people should always try new things when they travel. And Nick Pierce, one of the leading motivational speakers in the country, argues in My Time in China that people should always try new things when they travel. Do not simply drop your quotation in the end of a sentence and expect that to count as an intro. The best way to keep control of your paper is to use analysis to take back control after you quote. Analysis provides further information that your audience needs to incorporate the information into your argument. Primary methods are explaining, arguing, and answering. The primary form of analysis that you will engage in is explaining how the quote fits into your argument. What does the author mean by what is said in the quote? How should the audience interpret the author's words? How should the audience not interpret them? How does the quote support the point you are making in the paragraph in which it appears? Point out and define in your own words any important terminology. If you present a counter-argument in your paper, make sure that you argue against it. But also remember that if you're going to present a counter-argument, you treat it respectfully. Explain any common points and common ground between you and your main counter-argument. What do you agree on? Do you agree with their evidence? Do you agree with their reasons but not their conclusion? Explain where you differ and why you don't agree. In addition to counter-arguments, you might also answer other issues in your quotation. For instance, uncertainties or misgivings on the part of the author, missing or incomplete information that leads to a misguided conclusion, or if you think he or she stops his argument or her argument too soon, or if any part of the quote leaves open questions. Don't force your audience to try to figure out how you want your source interpreted. If you are having difficulty incorporating a specific quotation, or a quotation no longer works after you revise, take it out. Don't keep the dead weight in your paper just because it was in the first draft or because it sounds good. Don't be afraid to make big changes between your drafts, and make sure all of your sources help your argument. Explaining how your sources fit in your argument does many things. It improves your paper's quality, increases the length of your paper, increases your credibility, demonstrates your ability to handle the coursework, decreases the risk of quotations taking over. No source or quote is perfect. Everything needs to be explained, and no audience is perfect. So everybody needs to know how your sources are going to work in your argument. Now let's take a look at the practice. Take 5 minutes to write an outline for an argument about a proposed tuition rate increase here at Mountain View College. What reasons do you anticipate the administration giving for such an action? What answers do you have for their reasons? Make sure to structure your outline around the argument you are joining. It is already in progress since someone else proposed the tuition increase. This will give you a context in which to deal with the forthcoming quotation. Now suppose you intend to include the following hypothetical quote in your argument. The small tuition increase at Mountain View would mean big improvements in student life, including increased food choices on campus and up-to-date workout equipment. Which of the paragraphs in your outline deals with the possible benefits of a tuition increase? Would this argument be an ally or an opponent to your argument? Draft the paragraph in which you will include this quote using MLA and text citation style. Take about 10 minutes. Okay. Thanks for listening in today. If you have any questions, please come by the Writing Lab at W114. We'd be happy to help.